We are here with Jim, who is a digital product leader and e-commerce consultant. Jim, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I'm excited to have you. Love to see you wearing the suit. So just thank you for coming on.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you for having me, Easton. I'm actually very excited to be here. I was watching some of the archive over the weekend, so
Nice. Awesome. Well, man, thanks for coming on. We're just gonna get right in. So, like we talked about before the podcast, I don't really have an idea of what you do. So, can you kind of just give people a rundown of what exactly you do and all that entails?
absolutely. So the short version is that I solve problems, right? The longer explanation is I turn chaos into a work of art in the technology space, right? And as a product leader, I wear a bunch of hats. So it could be anything from solution architecting where you're like, hey, we have a warehouse now. We have a website that's doing like $10 million a year. How do we put them together, right? So I might solution that out. Or you might say like, hey, I have a really cool app that's competing with Groupon. What can we do to make it more user friendly or get ready to scale it or have it go to market or what have you, right? And then there's also managing the logistics and work and project within that, right? So, for example, you have a big idea, which you do actually. That's how we met. So you got this big idea. You're like, all right, I want this monolithic app that is going to serve this customer base. And so I kind of figure out, okay, well, how do you want the app to function from a front end perspective? Then what back end technologies do we need to do to support you so it's not crashing every 10 seconds? You want to take people's money. Great. Well, what are we going to do to settle payments and take money? Like this doesn't apply to you. You may want to ship stuff, right? So it's like, okay, well, that's a whole bunch of systems and logistics and business rules. And so it's essentially taking the human element of performing work and the technological element of performing work and figuring out how they all play together in the same sandbox, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great like explanation for people. And where do you see most common a point of struggle for businesses when it comes to like making that transition?
Wow, great question. The struggle is always people, right? And so you can fix a lot of things with processes. You can fix a lot of things with technology. Um, Most of the projects I've been on, the companies have been suffering from a people problem. Like they have a great idea, they just don't know how to get there. Or maybe there's some infighting. Maybe there's a couple of departments that don't talk to each other and they're a bunch of introverted engineers and it never occurred to them, I should just go out and have coffee with the head of this department or the head of this department, And so it's really like I'm kind of like that Mortal Kombat character, where he has like the robotic arms, but he's still human.
Yes, yes, and
Yeah.
I definitely think people are they can do great things, but we can also get in the way of success. Like you said, like egos come into play. People don't want to talk to each other. People just kind of want to do their own thing, and
Yep.
that causes a lot of problems. Like, um, where do you see these bigger companies that you've worked for, like Shopify, like HBO, like what do you see them doing that these other
Mhm.
maybe like medium sized companies that are looking to go enterprise really succeed at?
Oh, I love that. It's the difference between a speedboat and a cruise ship, right? So a company like Shopify is fascinating because they always start off as a speedboat, right? Like even Shopify back in 2009, total speedboat. Now they're a cruise ship. So if they want to make a platform change, right? Are you familiar with the concept of like SaaS and tenant systems?
Uh, a little bit, but like educate me.
Well, not to bore you to death, but think of it as a house versus an apartment, right? You own a house. You can go and smash a wall with a sledgehammer, like no one's going to be mad at you, right? You're in an apartment, you smash through your neighbor's wall, they're probably going to be pretty mad at you. So like the cloud, they call it the cloud or SaaS, right? Is more like an apartment building in the sky where it's like, if you're going to change one wall for one customer, that changes every wall for every customer. So when you are a Shopify, you have to think through from a product standpoint, okay, this giant client that's paying us a lot of money wants this feature, but if we were to put this in the platform, how would that affect all of the other thousands of clients that we have? And so that's why someone like Shopify has a tendency to move a little bit slower than a startup enterprise,
Do
And
you,
so what I,
yeah,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, do you think that is an advantage though, for them, or do you look at that like maybe as like a disadvantage?
I look at it like being in a band. And so like a great example is what you're going through now, right? Where you are scrappy and you're hungry and you're founding a startup and you live and breathe your product and you wake up every day and all day every day is dedicated to your product. It's like being in a band that hasn't gotten signed to a major label yet, right? And then it's like, you get fans, your fans like you, that attracts a label signs you, you get huge, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you can't really leave the house anymore because you're so famous, or you can't make the record you want to make because the label wants you to sell like the last record. And so it's the same thing, the difference between a startup and an enterprise. When you're in an enterprise, you are hamstrung by your own brand narrative. So, like, it's harder for Shopify to go out and take a risk than it is for a smaller enterprise. But the trade-off is it opens you up to money and resources and people wanting to work for you and having your stock publicly traded on Wall Street. And, whereas you had used to have to beg developers to like work for equity, now it's like you got 300 people applying for a job opening and you get your pick of the litter. So there's trade-offs, and it's interesting because it's how it's supposed to, it follows the circle of life, not to be too sappy about it, but it's like, there's the cycle of like, it's the hero's journey. You start off as small and scrappy. Hopefully, you grow into a big successful enterprise, and then it's like, then you're no longer in control.
And this is why we see a lot of companies that are successful not take the bigger risk, not try to innovate. And then we see all these startups like a Netflix versus a Blockbuster go
Yes.
above them and then take that leap forward because Blockbuster was like, oh, we're fine. We don't need to innovate because they're generating revenue. They don't want to take
Yep.
that risk. But then Netflix is like, hey, we see a place to innovate.
Yeah.
We're going to take all the risk.
Yeah. It'd be like if we were kickboxers, you and I, right? Like, so, like, how old are you?
Uh, 26.
Exactly. If you and I got in I'm 40, right? So if we got in a kickboxing match, you're probably younger, faster, more agile. They call it agility, right? You could probably, get three or four punches in before I even move, just because of like, your age, your youth. In business is a lot like that, especially in the tech business, where it's like, yeah, Netflix when they were young were super agile and like did the knockout punch to Blockbuster and a whole bunch of major studios, right? But now they're big and old like me, and it's harder for them to innovate. It's just how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Now, I also want to dive into what trends do you see coming up now in 2026 in the digital realm that you think are going to be prevalent as we move forward?
So, there's been a lot of talk of agentic commerce, which makes me mad every time someone says it, because my question is always like, why don't you just call it an AI personal shopper? Because that's what it is, right? But everybody jumped on this AI bandwagon and they were like, man, like we got to get this, we got to spend all this money on it. But then nobody knows how to use it or what to use it for. And they call it digital transformation, right? Like if you go on LinkedIn, there's like thousands of job openings for digital transformation. So I think the big trend is similar to what we were doing 3 or 4 years back, like e-commerce and digital commerce, but then looking at how you can leverage a leaner composable ecosystem, which we can drill down on that if you want, and AI to increase ROI, right? Because the whole name of the game is growth, right? And companies have been really leaning on lately faking their growth by cutting their costs, which isn't really growth because they've overspent on these monolithic infrastructures. And so I think a trend is companies are going to want to move back to, okay, how can we actually make money instead of just firing all of our staff and replacing them with robots, you know?
At what point should a company really start to look at AI, look at innovating, look at the new trends that are coming up versus being okay where they're at? They're like, hey, we are
Mm,
okay generating revenue. Like for example, for the Blockbuster, like Blockbuster's okay, we are generating enough revenue. We don't need to
yeah.
innovate, but that led to them being passed up. Like, at what point
Mm,
does a company say, okay, I do want to innovate and make that leap versus we're okay where we're at and they might be a little safer making that
mm.
decision?
Well, see, what I like about you is you're a Midwestern guy like me. And so I'm sure your dad growing up probably said, use the right tools for the job.
My
You ever
dad,
heard that one?
he actually grew up right in Canada.
Oh, hey, even more so.
Yes,
The Canadians are
yes.
like Midwesterners on steroids. Yeah, so really, that's what it boils down to. It's like it's like you're asking me, well, should I buy a gun or a sword? And the answer is, well, what are you trying to do? Because like the AI is amazing if you know how to use it and if you know what you're using it for. So I'll give you an example. Like so at this uh I've moonlighting gig for Shopify agency right now, right? And the guy that owns the agency is amazing. Like we have no developers, and he uses AI for everything. So he uses Claude Code to write all the Shopify code, right?
Wow.
And VS Code, and it'll if he's showing me the interface, it'll be like, "Hey, this is your homepage modal. You know, change the code here." Like I'm not gonna say it does the job for you, but it's close enough. And then he uses like he's invented all of these products. Like he invented this product where it's like you can clone somebody's voice. So he could take you, put you in front of a microphone, and then all of a sudden you are now a character in AI. It has learned your personality. It's learned how you speak, and then he'll give it a topic like current news, and then all of a sudden it'll just start making podcasts with you as the host in your voice. You know. And so he leverages AI really well. Or like, I use ChatGPT for when I want to be, I don't know if you noticed, I talk a lot. So I use it when I want to be more concise in my communication. But the trick is you have to know your tools and you have to know what you're trying to do. And that's one of the reasons why I think it would be very hard to completely replace humans with robots, you know?
Yeah. And what are some things you think in the future that AI will not be able to replace?
Well, that human aspect. So you and I connected, right? Because you were interested in what I was doing, and I was interested in what you were doing, and we got on a call, and we bonded, and we asked questions about each other, and then we got off the call going, "Well, that Easton guy was pretty cool. I like him." That's never going to happen with AI, right? And I watched this guy Dan Martell on YouTube, right? And his whole shtick, if you will, is he just comes up with business ideas and figures out which AI tools. So like he'll have like AI robo dialers that'll call like roofers and be like, "Hey, do you want advertising for your roofing business?" And he goes to sleep and it makes money, right? But I feel like that's more more scammy than actually a taste of the future, to tell you the honest truth, you know?
Yeah, and I think as we move forward with a lot of the technology, with the AI, I think people are going to crave more human things, more
Yeah.
one to one conversations, more phone calls, more human connection versus just going the AI route.
Absolutely. And as far as like what I do, right? Like with the digital product and the product management, it would be very hard to replace that with AI. Like I could leverage AI to, for instance, write me a Jira backlog. But let's say I'm at what's a good example? I think DirecTV is an example, right? So let's say I'm at DirecTV, which is like a big enterprise satellite telecom, right? And let's say I'm trying to launch a new feature on the set-top box. Like I got this really cool new digital feature that's going to serve people ads based on what they like. You couldn't have a robot to do that because it would require me. meeting like 6 or 7 different department heads and individual contributors within those departments, talking to them about how their tech stack interacts with my tech stack, getting agreement on what we're going to build, what kind of timeline we can commit to. And so you need a human to basically massage all the other humans. Like you couldn't just say to an AI, like, go into this infrastructure and launch this feature, but you can get it to write a really amazing Jira ticket where you could show it to an engineer and they'll be like, I get that, I can develop it.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. And now I want to dive into your
Mhm.
startup that you're going to be launching in the next couple months.
Sure.
Very, very exciting. Can you kind of just give us like a
Yeah,
little walkthrough of what it's going to be and, kind of the things that you want to accomplish with it in the next 6 months to a year?
absolutely. So, I did a gig at the Boston Consulting Group like 10 years ago, and I was really, really, really inspired. And so I liked the concept. And part of what they do is called management consulting. So they'll go to an enterprise business and they'll figure out, okay, where are you guys in pain and where are you trying to go, right? So, like Lego, I worked on a Lego project, and Lego was like, hey, we were on the verge of bankruptcy. We turned the company around, and now we want to grow into the biggest premium toy brand in the world, and we want to go after kids like we do and adults and yada yada yada, right? And so the Boston Consulting Group did a combination of, okay, from a strategy standpoint, a business strategy, like a branding strategy, what do you need to do? And then they had this tiny little department called BCG Ventures that would, like, okay, from a technology standpoint, what do we have to build in order for you to support that vision? And so, like in our agency, it's called Upshaw James. We want to do the same thing essentially, but on a smaller scale. So it's a combination of traditional management consulting where we're going to figure out where businesses are in pain, where they can grow in the digital space, but also running, the product management and implementation tasks. So, like, we'll help you solution and design an ecosystem, or if your ecosystem is what's messing you up, figure out how to simplify it and make it composable, right? Or and then the third part of that is running the implementation. So at a certain point in product management, you have to switch to program management, meaning now you got to manage the project and the people and the budget and the requirements and the what have you. And so we kind of, our vision is a full life cycle agency where you would get the quality of a McKinsey or a Boston Consulting Group, but the intimacy of, like, this guy that I'm working with part time now, like, he's on every call with every
Yeah.
client and, like, is very available. So somewhere in between that is where I want to go.
So it seems like you really want to bring back more of the customer service, building
Mhm.
relationships with your clients, not really hands off all the way. You really want to be there for your clients on a personal basis, not just sending one of your
Mhm.
reps in and they represent you and you never even talk to the client. Is that kind of where you're at?
Exactly, yeah. And so I guess the tagline or the elevator, if you will, would be bringing the human touch to the digital world.
And why do you think bringing that human touch back into project management consulting is so
Mhm.
important for you guys?
Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't want to be replaced by robots. Like, we've all seen the Terminator. So there's that. The other one is, I think that the old sales adage that people want to work with who they know and like is a universal truth. But I do think that we have to learn how to leverage all these shiny new objects that really do add value, like the AIs, the big monolithic commerce systems, or even, like, you know, the Shopifys of the world, incredibly useful tools. But there needs to be, like, a guy like me that's a product leader or a project manager that can basically, people want to party on a yacht. You still need a guy to drive the yacht while you're partying.
Yeah, no, for sure. What are some skills that you've really learned working as a project management under those big companies that we talked about, like Shopify and then like HBO, that you learned working for them that now you're going to be carrying into starting your own business?
Value prop. So, the mistake that I always made when I was young in my career was thinking about what I want, what's on my sheet of paper. They call it your sheet of paper, right? What's on your sheet of paper was really what I should be thinking about. Like if you were my boss, I should be thinking about what's on your sheet of paper. And so I think the skill of going at it from a perspective of why am I talking? And I know I talk a lot, but like on a job interview, I will listen a lot. And what I'm listening for is pain points. Where are you in pain? What are your challenges? What are your goals? And then from the human aspect, where is it that you want to go? Because you might tell me like, oh, I'm having a really hard time getting a developer for my app, right? Um, but really, what you might want is to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. So yeah, that's a real pain point. You can't find developers. But if I could figure out how to solve that and also position you to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, well, we have something there. And so I've essentially learned how to do that. It's servant leadership. It's not really about me. Um, it's more about what I can do for you. And I think that's one major skill that I've learned in my career.
One thing I'm really hearing in like all of that explanation is your skill of listening. Can you kind of dive into how you listen to people? What's kind of the proper way to actually be an active listener when you are getting feedback or trying to be that service provider, that service leader to someone that you're trying to help?
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you a great example. So I also volunteer with a company called Rework. And so they essentially train post-college graduates and adults that want to transition into tech sales how to be salesmen, right? And I was mentoring this kid. He was a real smart kid, and he got himself a job interview. And for the job interview, this company was like, "Okay, we want you to show up." And they gave him a real company that exists. We want you to go through this company. You're going to pretend it wasn't for Apple, right? But they wanted him to pretend he worked for Apple, and he wanted to sell these guys iPads. And it was just a great scenario, right? So he's like, well, what am I going to do? It's like, so we researched the company and we found the CTO and the CTO's boss, right, on LinkedIn. We looked at his LinkedIn post, like, what does this guy do? Oh, he's a company man, right? And then we started trying to guess, well, what would his pain points be? So, all right, maybe it was a chain of Mexican restaurants, kind of like Chipotle, but not Chipotle, right? So then we started looking at, okay, like, are they using any paper in their restaurant, right? So maybe they want to pay technical debt. You could swap an iPad out, everybody wins, right? Or maybe he doesn't care about that. Maybe he cares about expansion, right? And so it's having the value, having what you want first and getting a sense of that is what makes me a good listener to answer your question. Because I have like a deck of cards and I know every card in the deck. And then when I show up on a call with somebody or with a client, I'm listening to what they're saying, but then I'm also listening for like what's under that?
I think listening is a skill that has been lost. I think a lot of people love to talk about themselves. I think we
Hmm.
enjoy when we talk about themselves, but what I've realized is when you're a good listener and you ask good questions, you can make anyone talk, no matter how introverted they are. If you ask the right questions, they will
Yeah.
talk forever. Especially, I'm not sure if you're
Yeah.
familiar with Chris Voss.
Oh yeah. I
Uh,
love Chris Voss.
if you use some of his stuff like mirroring and all that stuff, you can
Yeah.
get people to talk forever. So I think it is definitely a lost
Yeah.
skill.
I sometimes mirror, but then I feel like I'm being manipulative. But I'll give you a great example. So if I wanted to get you talking, I would ask. But the trick, okay, so the first thing I have to say, the trick is to be genuinely
Yes.
interested in the person you're talking to. Like it doesn't work if you fake it. I just happen to like people, right? Which is what makes me kind of different. But if I wanted to get you talking, I would ask something like, so what made you want to start a company that is going to basically compete with and replace Groupon?
Yes. Yep.
No, I'm
those type of
asking.
questions are, oh, no, no, no. This is for you. This isn't my interview. This is for you. This is
Trying
your
to
interview.
manipulate you into talking. Yeah, see?
No, but no, it is like those type of questions, right? It's
Mhm.
getting people in that state where they're talking about something they love, they're passionate
Yeah,
about. It flips in their brain. They turn off auto, like the auto responder when we say, "Hey, how's your day?" "Oh, I'm good." "Oh, my day's good too." And then you go on with your
yeah,
day. So it's super, super important. I have one more question for you.
absolutely.
What is one thing you are most afraid of as you begin this journey of starting your own business?
Oh, you know, it's the reason why everybody like shies away from sales is because sales and customer acquisition is really, really scary. And so I've had to actually drink my own Kool-Aid insofar as remembering that it is not about me. So like initially I was terrified as like, all right, if I start an agency, we have to find clients, then I have to do stuff, then I have to perform. And I flipped it to um there's people out there that need my help. I have skills. My business partner, Nikid, has complementary skills to mine. We add a lot of value. So how are we going to find people with their problems and alleviate their pain? And so when I stay in that mindset, I'm really, really zen and I'm calm and I'm excited. As soon as I start thinking about what do I want, everything just, goes terribly. So,
Yes. Well, Jim, thank you for coming on the podcast, man. I appreciate it. How can people find you? And what is one thing you want to leave people with?
well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited about the business you're starting. I'm excited about the podcast. I'm excited to be here. As far as how people can find me, so I am on LinkedIn. If you just look up Jim Markunas, definitely connect with me, follow me. And then I guess we kind of have a corporate website. It's ujcg.eu, but we're still figuring out our value prop. So we're what do they call that? Pre-alpha.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what is one thing you want to leave people with?
Oh, one thing I want to leave people with. So, all right, it's going to as much as everybody is feeling the anxiety and the real burn of humans getting their jobs replaced by robots. It's going to be very hard to replace that human touch. And so the thing I'd want to leave everybody with is how can you today get outside yourself and listen to somebody else? And that'll help you not just in your personal and romantic relationships, but next time you're on a job interview, when they're like, tell me about yourself, maybe shorten that and then be like, now you tell me about yourself. You might learn something.
I love it. Well, Jim, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I'm excited for your startup to be launching here in the next couple of months. And I just appreciate you and you coming on. So thank you.
Thank you.